Hello and welcome to episode 15 of Creative Walks. I'm Pedro Bonatto, and today I wanted to expand a little bit on what I started talking yesterday about turning your procrastination into research in your particular creative field. And this time is literally an example of that. I couldn't sleep well last night, so I was listening to this podcast that I mentioned. It's called Battlestar Galactica. It talks about this TV series that I loved called Battlestar Galactica. It's like a sci-fi thing, but with a lot of political and human nature discussions. And there was one particular episode where they were talking to one of the lead actors in the series. His name is James Edward Olmos, and he was also the director of one particular episode that they were discussing. And he was talking about how, particularly in that time, they needed to infuse a little bit of humor because the series was getting super dark, and they got these notes from the network saying, can you make it a little bit funnier? And so they decided that they would get Olmos to direct one episode because he had already a lot of experience with the actors and with the way the series was going. And he was talking about this funny trick that he used in directing actors. And what he was doing was basically doing like a prank to get some emotions out of actors while they were filming. What he did was basically give instructions to one particular actor in how she would interact with other actors during a specific scene. And then he would not tell the other actor the reason of the prank, let's say, what was going to happen. And the idea was to then get the cameras sort of pointed to that actor and getting an authentic reaction out of his performance. I had never heard of these kinds of things. I even remember originally watching this episode and thinking it was hilarious because there were certain things that they were doing that actually got very interesting reactions from the actors. And I thought, wow, they're just very, very good actors. But he was saying that, no, he actually, on purpose, did not instruct them on what was going to happen. So in a way, it's something that I think is not done that often in TV series, unless you're talking to very high-level people, which is improvising on the spot. But not only improvising, letting everyone improvise, but creating certain rules, in this case, getting one actor to do something that the other is not expecting. And then I was thinking about this concept of applying practices from other creative fields into your own, and how a lot of innovation can come when you start paying attention to those things. Specifically, in my case, for example, in photography, I usually get to people to do specific poses or at least explain the intention of what the photo is about. But I hardly ever surprise my models. Actually, I don't think I ever surprise the model unless it's something that happens on the set. And I thought I had never come up with this idea on my own, I think. It's something that I happened to come across on a podcast about filmmaking, which, granted, is related to photography in a way, but in a lot of ways, it's not. Because in photography, you're trying to capture one frame, or even when you're doing a story, by a story, I mean a series of photographs that are related to one subject, you hardly ever follow the talent, you follow the model like through a story per se. You're usually putting different moments frozen in time. And I think I'm going to try to apply this to one of my next photographs. In any case, the point of today's episode is more about how to apply concepts that are used in other artwork, other art fields, and how you can apply to your own. Here's another example that from the same podcast, this time with the showrunner and creator Ron Moore. And he was talking about how in the writer's room, usually in TV series, you don't have one person writing the whole series or even a full episode. You have a bunch of writers, and whenever they are discussing the full arc or the mythology of the series, they usually have this whiteboard where they put concepts or they put arcs or they put different things that were introduced in the series before, and then they have to keep a track of it and keep going with it. That, of course, applies to writing. It's a specific style of writing that I think is very interesting. And I thought that also can apply to photography in a way, especially when you're trying to create, for example, in my case, fine art series. What I thought about doing before and what I did in the Orientalist series, for example, was to let one photograph inspire the next, or at least have a few moments in the series, a few photographs in the series that were mapped out, and then by the act of actually creating those photographs, let that experience inform what will appear on the next one. In the case of that specific series of the Orientalist, what I ended up doing was having recurring characters, which was certainly inspired by a TV series, and I'm sure by my understanding of what they were doing in Battlestar Galactica. But I thought for my next one of the things that I will try to do, instead of doing this visual map or elements map, is actually create like a writer's room whiteboard to create a whole arc of what's going on in those photographs. And I think that will help to inform and enrich each photograph because I will be able to see the connections visually. And that's, again, an idea borrowed from creative writing applied to photography. So this has been Creative Walks number 15. I hope you find this interesting. You can find me on all social media at Pedro Bonatto with 2 T's, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.